All right, we're going to talk Orlando Magic. And we're going to talk about this team that now has incredible expectations for this upcoming season. Michael Bolton, you can sing the song.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and you've changed, man. You used to be about the music. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner, so visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms, so I want to see those thumbs. I want to see you double banging audio and video and leaving your comments down below. I want to see you singing the song. I want to see you talking about the Orlando Magic. That's what we're doing for the 10th consecutive year. I'm going to say 10. It might be 11. I don't even know. But it is the host of the Locked On Magic podcast. Philip Rossman-Reich is here. Phil, this Magic team is just had so many iterations over this time that we've been doing these shows, and now they're a legit chance to, like some would say, Eastern Conference Finals, some would say NBA Finals. They are making moves. They are going all in, and it is an exciting time to be covering the Magic.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I just love that you have the new logo all ready to go. You're way ahead of the curve here. It is a new day for the Magic.
I am very pedantic about those things, about making sure we'll come out. Got to make sure the colors, like for the example, Indiana Pacers. We're not talking about They didn't change their color. They just made their blue slightly darker. So I had to go through and redo all of my graphics to make sure we had the navy and yellow instead of the blue and gold that they used to have. I like the new Magic logo. I like the update. I like the refresh. I'm all about it here, Phil, because we're into a new era of Orlando Magic basketball. We saw last season, they were great early on. They obviously suffered unbelievably 2 oblique strains, which cost their 2 best players multiple months at a time. But we saw both of those players, Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, take steps forward and really drive this team. Now, Desmond Bane comes in, not saying he is the level of player of those guys, although some could make the argument that he is. But there are just not enough touches and shots to go around for all of these guys to work to their optimal. So, I think the immediate gut reaction is that, okay, so Franz Wagner is going to sort of take some sort of a step back, and Desmond Bane comes in, and they're both sort of the 2A and 2B behind Paolo. But as you know, it's been a big discussion around Paolo and his efficiency issues. Do you think that it would make more sense that maybe Paolo just dials back a little bit, Franz dials back a little bit more, and then Bane slots into that role there to make this team and this offense more cohesive, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense because last year, the Magic just didn't have anyone else who could really create or do anything outside of Paolo or Franz. I think they both ended the season with usage rates above 30%, which, if you think about it, like everybody, playing equally as everyone's got 20%, your superstars are all above 30%, upper 20s. Those are the guys that have a lot of the ball in their hands. And so I think part of the reason why you bring in a guy like Desmond Bane is to just relieve that pressure and relieve some of the tension of having 2 guys that are just constantly kind of, I would describe it this way. In the playoffs against Boston, it felt like Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner were banging their head against a wall. And they put some dents in that wall. They're good enough to put dents in the wall, but they're never going to break through. And so, especially against a defense like that. And so you bring in a guy like Desmond Bane to just share the burden a little bit. I would still expect Paolo and Franz to get their numbers and get some points. But the hope and the idea is that Desmond Bane, who averaged 5 assists per game in each of the last 2 seasons, can create some easier shots for Paolo and Franz so they're not having to do everything, and they can get a spot up, one more spot up 3 than they would have otherwise. So that Desmond Bane could help Paolo get an extra assist or 2 as a spot up shooter, or Franz an extra assist or 2 as a spot up shooter. I think that's where that burden sharing comes from. The ball's still going to be in Paolo and Franz's hands. This team, we could talk about, I'm sure we'll talk about this later, this team doesn't have a true point guard. Paolo and Franz are still the guys with the ball in their hands. They'll still get their touches. It's just the hope is they'll have space either to shoot more efficiently or they'll have an easy outlet to get them open threes, which they didn't have throughout last season.
Yeah, because this team was shooting challenged. They brought Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in for that, and then he was not really what they expected. He was part of what netted them Desmond Bane, but Bane is a much better player than KCP. He's a guy that can change his role as necessary. He can be a high usage guy. He can be a pseudo point guard. And you're right, this team has in their presumed starting five, which we're going to presume is Suggs, Bane, Wagner, Banchero, Carter. Every one of those players, I would say, I'm not going to say above average for their position because Suggs is below average as a passer for a point guard, but he's still a good passer. Bane is a good passer. Franz is a good passer. Paolo is a good passer. And Wendell Carter is a good passer as a center. So they're sort of, I guess, splitting that playmaking creation role around amongst a bunch of different guys.
I've been joking the entire offseason that the Magic are moneyballing the point guard position. They don't have a point guard, but they can create one in the aggregate almost. And we'll see if that works. And I think there's some things that a point guard does that don't get captured statistically, but I think the Magic feel like they have enough unselfish guys. And I know Paolo gets this rap of, he's taking all these inefficient mid-range shots. He gets compared to Carmelo Anthony a lot. This guy wants to pass the ball. He wants to make the right play. That's been my observation. It honestly got to a point last year where Paolo Banchero would be facing a double team. And, maybe even Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was open in the corner. And Paolo just came to the conclusion that me taking a contested mid-range jumper is a higher efficiency shot than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope shooting a three. It just got to that point. Or even Franz Wagner shooting a three was just not nearly as efficient as Paolo taking a bad mid-range shot. And I don't have the numbers that back me up on that, but I can't blame him for those choices. And so Desmond Bane comes in and will hopefully give him an option that he trusts to kick out to.
Yeah, and he should, because Bane not only can do that as a catch and shoot guy, which is what KCP's role ostensibly was, but Bane can actually do something with the ball. He can put it on the floor. He can dribble, and that is going to be key. And I do think that we're going to see, and this team's so hard to judge, especially from a numbers perspective, because we saw Franz put up huge numbers because Paolo was out, and then we saw Franz and Paolo both be out, and Jalen Suggs put up huge numbers, and then those guys came back and Suggs went out. So we didn't get to see how it all worked together. Now you add another variable in there with Bane. So a lot of these numbers, I expect a lot of the usage stuff for Paolo will drop a little bit. I expect Franz is going to come down, and we're going to talk about Suggs later on. I expect we're going to see a wildly different statistical sort of skill set from Suggs this season because of how this team looks. Just on Franz, before we get into talking about the big man position of this team, he started off lots last season, started to shoot better, and then he didn't. And that is 2 years in a row where he has been, under 30% from three for a guy that started out with his first two seasons, I think 36% from three.
34, 36% first 2 years.
What is going on? Because that is just, that's not even average. That is bad. That is horrendous. That is yuck. This is like when Russell Westbrook is taking a three. We do not want this. Is there anything observable with you go, why has that changed?
Yeah. So last year, It had a little bit to do with the injury. I think before Franz's oblique injury, he was shooting 32 or 33% from three, which isn't good.
It was definitely better, though.
But it was better, and it was fluid. He had the big shot against the Lakers. He's taking a lot of pull-up threes because he's, working off the dribble so much, especially with Paolo out. Paolo played only 5 games before he got hurt last year. So a lot of Franz's shots early in the season were he was the only guy with the ball in his hands creating a lot. And so he wasn't getting a lot of spot up shots. And he isn't necessarily a great spot up shooter either, but shots that you would typically think, oh, those are easy threes. And on top of that, because the Magic are just so 3-point challenged, he and Paolo have to take a lot of threes. I think they both averaged 5 or 6 threes per game last year. And again, if you're going to take that many threes, you better be making them at a decent clip. 33% would be the bare minimum. After the injury, Franz came back, and almost immediately we all noticed there was this little hitch in his shot. It looked like he was kind of reloading his elbow or something. After the injury, he shot, I think, 23, 24% from three, something right, horrendously bad. That weighed him down completely. And I had scouts come up to me and ask, what's going on with Franz's shot? Everyone could see that there was this extra motion and this extra movement in his shot, and no one could, and Franz wouldn't talk about it. Wouldn't even really talk about it after the season ended. He, other than to acknowledge that, yes, I need to figure out my shot and figure this out to be the player that I want to be, the player that this team needs me to be. Core injury. It's a lot of core muscles. And so We don't really know. We don't really know. As we're recording this, Germany's played 2 EuroBasket games. Franz is shooting 1 for 6 on those threes and those 2 games against Slovenia, but the hitch is gone. That's good news. But he's not getting those spot up opportunities. So I am a little curious what happens if he, when he gets to the Magic, because obviously with Germany, it's him and Dennis Schroeder, doing a lot of the driving and creating and stuff like that. I am curious what happens when he comes to the Magic and you have Paolo soaking up all the attention. You have Desmond Bane who can attack and kick out. Even Jalen Suggs can attack and kick out. I am curious if it's a little bit better. And look, I'm not expecting Franz to suddenly shoot 36, 37% from 3. A lot of us will take somewhere in the low 30s just to get him back on the right track. But it's a mystery that nobody's been able to solve.
We're going to come back and talk about the center position in a sec. Before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. August the 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. It's a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches for just 24 hours. FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So you might be calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off. This is your moment. You can take that flyer on somebody in the MVP race. I don't know. I don't even know who I said. Well, who would I say? Well, Josh Allen, I think, won it last season. Patrick Mahomes is always going to be in there, but maybe do we go with do we let it ride with Russell Wilson? Probably not. But I'm just saying that because it's funny. But do you look to pick your champion? Maybe the Carolina Panthers? No, because that's also stupid. But also don't know who I'm going to pick. You can pick whoever you want to win the Super Bowl. You can parlay your division winner dark horses as well on FanDuel Futures Day. So go to FanDuel app today. Start planning your future bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Okay. Now, I know, and I'm sure you've heard this, I hear it all the time in fantasy circles. I even when I put up a notification of the Magic and this team coming forward and their starting lineup, I got the question that I knew I was going to get, because we know that Wendell Carter Jr. starts, he gets hurt. He had some real struggles last season. He works his way back, he takes the starting job, and everyone laments it, Phil. They go, oh no, it's got to be Goga Bitadze. Goga's way better. He's the way better center. And then by the end of the season, Goga is out of the rotation. And that has happened 2 consecutive years. The exact same situation has happened. And people will still be adamant that Goga is going to be a starter and he should be a starter and he's way better than Wendell. And they might think that. You might think that. I might think that. I'm not saying that we do or we don't, but it does not matter because the Magic very clearly do not think that. So I believe the answer to this question is, how stable is Wendell Carter at center as the starter? I think it's fairly stable because the evidence is piling up. But again, this is not to say that Wendell was great. So again, you can answer this question. Is there any risk that Wendell is not the starting center on this team?
Not on this team, no. I think Wendell Carter is the clear starter on this team. He just, again, this is stuff that is not to do with fantasy basketball. These kind of decisions are not always stat-based and fantasy-based. He just gives them a lot of stability on defense. And I know Goga Bitadze has some great defensive numbers. Mm-hmm. He blocks a lot of shots. He kind of gobbles up rebounds, especially on the offensive glass. The way the Magic like to play defense is they want guys who could switch 1 through 5. If you watch that series against the Celtics, the Magic were almost too comfortable letting Wendell Carter switch on to Jaylen Brown and letting Corey Joseph guard Kristaps Porzingis. But that was part of their strategy to reduce the Celtics 3-point shooting. They trust Wendell Carter to make decisions defensively and just be solid defensively. He's not going to blow you away with any of those stats. He's not doing the kind of high-flying blocks and rim protection. Although I will note, Wendell Carter had a better defensive field goal percentage at the rim last year than Goga Bitadze. He was the Magic's best quote-unquote rim protector. He doesn't block shots. He's all about positioning.
But he used to block shots. I don't know what happened to him. He used to block shots.
Yeah.
He used to, and he just doesn't anymore. He's gone the Bam Adebayo route.
Yeah, exactly. And again, because the Magic switch so much, he's not always around the basket to rebound, but they just believe and trust how solid he is on that end. Now, having said that, yes, if you ask me, now that the Magic have kind of, if you look at the Magic's cap sheet, I know this isn't a cap podcast, this is a fantasy podcast. If you look at the Magic's cap sheet, they've got more than $30 million invested in each of Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Desmond Bane when Paolo's extension kicks in after the season. Center position is very much the next position the Magic are going to examine, and I think this is a very big season for Wendell Carter as the Magic try to kind of establish themselves as potential championship contenders. They need to know if Wendell Carter is someone they can trust and kind of build a championship level team around. Like they obviously can build an elite defense with him in there, but they need to know, is this a guy that's going to help us win a second round playoff series? And that's really, again, a lot of this stuff, it's not stat based. It's not necessarily fantasy based, but it's stuff that's going to be, he's kind of the glue guy that makes a lot of this stuff work for the Magic. And that doesn't always show up in a stat sheet.
Yeah, but that's why it's important because, yes, Goga, if they were playing equal minutes, would put up better fantasy numbers. No one debates that, but it also doesn't matter if he's sitting on the bench, fingering his ass. It doesn't matter. If he's not on the court, if they don't believe that he's on the court, then it doesn't matter. If Wendell is the guy and he's playing his 27 minutes and he's out there and he's helping the other guys do what they do, then that's what he does. And that's what we all need to accept versus it's never an individual, there are a lot of basketball debates that come down to, well, this guy, he's got such a bag. He'd win one-on-one. Cool. Not the game. Play a different sport. That's not the game. This guy puts up great numbers. Cool. But does it work with everyone else around him? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? And Goga has had success. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I like Goga Bitadze a lot. Right. But it also doesn't matter.
And Goga's going to play until Mo Wagner's healthy at the very least. Mo Wagner tore his ACL in December last year. I'm not expecting him back until around Christmas, if not early January, just because of the way the Magic are so cautious. Goga's going to get minutes. And, my observation is Goga's attention kind of wanders sometimes. He is a little bit of a block chaser, and that puts him out of position at times defensively, which, so the Magic know to sprinkle him in just the right amount. And look, we talked a little bit about Franz earlier in the episode. Goga Bitadze suffered a concussion in early January. When he came back, he was in the rotation. Obviously, Mo Wagner was out. There's no reason not to have him in the rotation. He was just a completely different player after he came back from that concussion. He just was not nearly as effective. And so naturally, he lost some trust. And at the end of the day, especially when you're kind of a bench player, it's all about trust. Can I trust you to hold your own in these minutes, expand if need be, whatever the case may be? He just lost some of that trust, I think, that he gained earlier in the season when he obviously helped keep the team afloat. And then if you go look at the playoffs, the two moments that stick out to me about his playoff series and just an example of this is why Goga is kind of in and out of rotation all the time, is he had that wild elbow that he swung at Kristaps Porzingis in game 2 that bloodied Porzingis up. And then game 5, Paolo gets into the foul trouble. He picks up his 5th foul early in the third quarter. The Magic throw Goga in there and he's trying to switch and he's just straight shoving guys, just two-handed open shoves with the Magic in the bonus, and they're clinging on to their lives, their season lives. And it's just sometimes Goga doesn't quite understand what the moment needs completely. And so that's why trust is up and down with him. And we'll see, he'll play in EuroBasket here in a bit. He'll get some opportunity early in the season. I think he's a prime trade deadline candidate to go somewhere where he can get minutes. He is a player that I think deserves to be in rotation somewhere in the NBA. I don't quite understand why he re-signed with the Magic last year without the guarantee that he would get rotation minutes. He's, for those that do support him, yes, he is clearly a rotation player, and the Magic have too many centers they want to play right now. Whether it's Jonathan Isaac, whether it's Mo Wagner when he comes back, they have too many guys, and it's a luxury to have a guy like Goga Bitadze. So I would, if you're looking at him in fantasy, he is going to be a prime trade deadline candidate, especially if the Magic are trying to upgrade something on their roster for a playoff run.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that, we know when he fills in, the numbers are fine. But, that regular role is just not something that seems like it's got any chance of happening outside of injuries, which, of course, knowing Wendell Carter can happen, or probably will happen at any point.
Having said that, last year was the most games Wendell Carter's ever played in a season in his career.
Okay, was it? Jesus, okay.
I think it was, yeah.
Let me just. Okay.
He played the most consecutive games he's ever played in his career.
Wow, he played. You're right. He did. He played 68 games. I felt like he missed a lot more than that. He played 68 games last season.
He missed a lot of time at the beginning of the season. He came in the season saying, "My goal is I want to play all 82," and then game 6 or 7, he bumped his knee and he had game 6 against Cleveland, the first game without Paolo. He was dealing with some knee issues, so the Magic held him out of that game. And then he tried to come back the very next game against Dallas and hit his knee and missed 2 weeks. And then that was the only injury issue he had. He came back and he was there for the rest of the season.
What a season.
It was 2-3 weeks, yeah.
Carter plays 68. Jonathan Isaac goes over 70. Just amazing stuff happening in Orlando. But of course, the two main guys are out for big chunks of the season. And then the next guy we're going to talk about also missed a very, very long time. And we're going to talk about him in a sec. Of course, I'm talking about Jalen Suggs, who I loved as a prospect. I think he's one of the... And I say this all the time, I've got to be really cautious about how I say this, Phil, because Jalen Suggs is not the Magic's best player. That's clear. But to me, especially last season, he was their most important player because, he gets in people's faces. He is the chemistry guy. He's the heart and soul guy, but he shoots. He's a point guard. He plays balls out defense. I don't know if this is still true, but I know he had one of the biggest home road splits in terms of production, in terms of feeding off energy and providing energy. And he went down and the team turned to shit, realistically. And he kept them afloat when everyone else was out. And you go, how is this happening? Well, it's because of him. And then he went down with that knee injury that cost him the second half of the season. We presume that he comes in as the starting point guard. Their backups are Tyus Jones and there's Anthony Black in there as well. But Suggs, and if we're going to look at his numbers in a second, the numbers were big. He took steps up. He shot the ball well. His usage was high. But like I said earlier, it's impossible to sort of judge this stuff because all of his games basically were either without Paolo or, for the large portion, without both Paolo and Franz. So he's going to have to step into a different role. How do we see that? Do you think that he becomes more focused defensively, which we've seen leads to injuries with him? Does he turn into more of a spot-up guy, more of a playmaker? How do you expect him to fit into this role? Because it is entirely different to what he had to do last season.
Yeah, it's going to be completely different. And I'm actually really optimistic about what Jalen Suggs is going to do next year. Obviously, injuries are always kind of on the back burner, but I think one of the things that having a Desmond Bane to kind of take some of that, that creation role is that Jalen Suggs will take less hits going to the basket. He's not going to be a straight driver anymore. He's not going to be asked to be a lead playmaker. Obviously everyone still runs some pick and rolls. The Magic will still run some stuff for him. But I really think Jalen Suggs' best offensive role is as a spot up shooter. If you go back and look at his 2024 season, because last year was just so incomplete. I know you have the numbers below. 31.4% shooting from three is not particularly good. He shot 36% from three in 2024. If you look at his just spot up numbers, I actually have them up here because I wanted to have them easy to pull up. If you look at his spot up numbers in the games before Paolo's injury, which I know is just 5 games, he shot 17 for 40 from three and 53.1% on 6.4 catch and shoot 3-pointers per game. In 2024, he shot 39.7% from three. So I underestimated him. He shot 40.7% on 3.8 catch and shoot threes during the 2024 season. So if you're bringing in another creator like Desmond Bane, my anticipation is that Desmond Bane's going to get 6, 7, 8 threes per game. It's a little bit of a volume thing. Jalen Suggs also has the potential to be a real volume shooter. Someone who, if you can get a guy downhill collapsing the defense, kick it back out to him, with space, he can make that shot at, maybe not elite level, but at a very high level. So I think if the Magic can kind of carve out a role for him and create a scenario and a situation for him where he is taking 5, 6 catch and shoot spot up threes per game, I think he's someone that could shoot above 40% on those shots with the kind of talent the Magic have on this game. I'm actually really, really high on what Jalen Suggs can do now that you've turned him into sort of the fourth option on offense. He's not going to be the third option anymore. You don't need him to take over games. You need him to be a floor spacer, and when they close out, attack and read from there. And so I'm actually really excited to, obviously health is the first thing. He had a weird knee injury. He had a surgery that I don't think any of us.
I've never heard of this thing, a trochlea or something.
A trochlea. It's the cavity. It's the cavity your knee sits in.
Yeah.
That your knee bone sits. That your femur sits in. And the surgery he had, it was called a mosaic-plasty, is not like your typical surgery. It was initially described to us as he's just getting a scope, and it's a scope is pretty routine. A mosaic-plasty is a little bit more intense. And look, he's back on the court. He's doing stuff. I don't know if he's playing contact yet, but he's working out and able to do things on the court. They posted some photos. He's not even wearing a brace on the knee or anything like that. So all indications are he'll be ready for camp. But I'm really intrigued to see, okay, we know what you can do on defense. The Magic expect that energy and intensity on defense. Scale back the lever a little bit on offense and be a pure spot up shooter. It could be a real breakout offensive season for Jalen Suggs, in my opinion. Just the numbers would tell me that the role that he could potentially play in is one he's already experienced success that isn't really there in the full numbers in his career.
You are a smart man, Phil, so you may already know this, but do you know how many minutes that Franz, Paolo, and Suggs played together last season?
97 minutes over 6 games.
Thank you very much. Unbelievable. You are absolutely bang on. 97 minutes. That is a ridiculously low number. So people will look at this and they'll look at Suggs' output from last season. If you're looking fantasy-wise, you see he had a 28 usage. It's not happening. This might be the player in the NBA who has the largest drop in usage of any player that's a rotation guy. I would think that he is hitting under 20% usage. He's going from the number 1 guy for most of the season to the number 4 player for this season. It is going to be an incredible drop. Now,
but I would argue that his like counting stats are going to be about the same. Like he'll average
his
14,
efficiency
15 a game.
Yeah, his efficiency is going up because if you look again in those 97 minutes, which is nothing, he had an effective field goal percentage of 63%. Okay, that's unbelievable. That is ridiculously efficient, and it's obviously small sample size. But also, Phil, he took 29 three-point attempts and 12 twos. He just bombed threes. They went in. Great. He played often.
He's the only guy making threes early in the season. I looked that up too.
He was definitely doing that. And he's one of those guys, again, people know this, I talk about all the time on this show, is I love a player that scales. He's like, all right, everyone's down. All right, it's me. Like, I'm running everything here. I'm taking all the shots. They're going to be bad. They're not going to go in. You want me to do other stuff where I just hound the shit out of the opponents and get steals and bring my usage back down? Cool. I'll do that as well. I am the leader, the mascot, the whatever it is. He'll do all these things. So again, the numbers are going to be different. They might be similar, but they'll be achieved in a different way because there's no other real way to do that. I guess this part also, just for a couple of minutes here, brings me to talk about the other point guard. So there's bringing in Tyus Jones, but whatever. Tyus Jones is a very solid backup point guard. It was, to me, pretty obvious he's not a starter before last season. I think everyone is now on my side of that line. But what I want to know is, what does this mean for Anthony Black? Because is he? I don't think he's a point guard. He's not a shooting guard because he can't shoot. Like they were playing Corey Joseph as the starting point guard over him last season. Where are they at with him? Like where does he fit in on this team? I honestly struggle to sort of figure it out.
I mean, I think everyone struggles to figure out where Anthony Black fits in or what his ultimate future is. I mean, like it's like I've been starting to preview this a little bit. He's extension eligible next summer.
Yep.
Like I don't want to be Jeff Weltman trying to figure out what I pay that kid. And look, like when Anthony Black was good last year, he was really good. Like I think in wins, he shot like 38, 39% from 3. In losses, he was like 21%. And so you just, obviously they're 41 and 41. So there was like 36 wins and 39 losses with Anthony Black. You just don't know what you're going to get from him. And obviously entering year 3, you need some consistency. I don't think the Magic, well, first off, like we said earlier, the Magic don't really believe in positions. Like there's no like one true role for anyone. They want everyone to do everything. So is Anthony Black going to be the point guard? Like he'll play with Tyus Jones a lot. He'll play with Jalen Suggs a lot. He'll play with Desmond Bane a lot, I think. He'll be kind of a secondary creator, a secondary ball handler, a second ball handler in a lot of the lineups they have. I think the Magic, Jalen Suggs was good at one thing, and Anthony Black's good at this too, is picking up the pace, trying to get the team up court quicker. By the same token, like Anthony Black is an excellent defender. The Magic love his defense and love his defensive versatility, especially for a young player. He is an incredible defender, and now it's just about how do you get him more consistent. That means he's got to make threes. He's obviously not creating off the dribble, and he doesn't take a lot of mid-range jumpers or pull-up jumpers. He's got to make spot-up threes if he's going to be really, really effective. And the way the Magic are constructed, I think they're betting on Anthony Black playing a big role, especially until Mo Wagner comes back. Who's scoring off that bench? You look at the Magic's bench.
Tristan da Silva.
Tristan da Silva is the other guy that I think the Magic are betting a lot on to be like a solid spot-up shooter. So, like, I think rotation-wise, the Magic are going to make sure they have one of their big 4, and that's Paolo, Franz, Bane, and Suggs. At least one of those big 4 will be on the floor at all times. When healthy, I think 2 of the 4 will be on the floor for almost every minute. And that should stabilize the offense a little bit because, there isn't a Cole Anthony on the bench anymore who, for as inefficient as Cole Anthony was, he is a mindset of a primary scorer.
Yes.
Mo Wagner, when he's healthy, and obviously I don't think he'll be back, and it'll probably take him a while to get really up to speed. The joke around the Magic is Mo Wagner falls out of bed with 10 points. He is someone that they can rely on to give them some bench scoring. The fun stat as well, this is the other fun stat from the Magic. Before Mo Wagner's injury in December, the Magic were 5th in the league in bench scoring. After Mo Wagner's injury, they were 23rd.
Yeah.
It's like a difference of 7 points, but it was a huge, the bench was a huge factor for the Magic, especially because Franz Wagner plays a lot with those second units. And so I think they are betting a lot on Anthony Black being just a bit more consistent, just giving them just a little bit more offense and a little bit more something. He was 8-9 points per game last year. I think they want him above at around 10, maybe like 11 points per game to really, and then be efficient from three on top of that to really get where they want to go.
You're bringing up some numbers that I feel that are, of course you always bring the goods, but like it made me delve into this, what he did in wins versus losses, and honestly, like it's actually bizarre. So like, yes, he played in 39 wins and he played in 39 losses. He started only one of the wins and he started 9 of the losses. He shot 41% in the starts and 22% from three in the losses. He had a plus minus of plus 15.3 in the wins and negative 17.4 in the losses. So I'm not here to tell you that Anthony Black is the driving force because he's inconsistent. If he has a good game, they're going to win. If he has a bad game, they're going to lose. It does seem that way though. Like it just does seem that like if he's just like out there, and the thing is the difference between his good and his bad is so wide. Like if he shits the bed, everything fell apart. And that's nothing went in. They got cooked when he was out there. When he played well and he locked in defensively and the shots went in, then they were really hard to beat. And that's really intriguing to think for a guy that we don't really look at as that sort of an influential player. But that is just a wild sort of a split to see that like stark difference between like him being such a driver of success or failure, honestly. And not,
or an indicator, at least. There's a correlation. It may not be causation, but there was a correlation throughout the year about that.
Yeah, like he was a part of those wins and a huge part of the losses. And was he causing it? I don't know. But it is definitely interesting.
I think like the context matters there too. And again, this is like the Magic last year were just so injured. Like I think a lot of people look at them and they're like 41-41, 7 seed. Who are they really? And it was like, well, no, like they're still, they're 41-41 despite all the injuries. They were 6 wins worse when they were the 5 seed 2 years ago. If Paolo and Franz get through the season healthy, they're fighting with Milwaukee, Indiana, Detroit for the 4 seed. Like they were very clearly in that group last year. And so something like those numbers with Anthony Black, it really says like with Paolo and Franz were going to do their thing. Like, yes. Paolo had a bad January coming back from the injury. Like Franz was, his shot was inconsistent after the injury, but they really needed a third guy just to give them that little kick, that little push over the edge to really play well. And, at the end of the season, like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope shot, I think 46% from three over the last 18 games of last season. And like that, they were 12-6 over their last 18 games to get to 500. That was like the little push they needed to just get over the edge. And so I think like the theory of the case for the Magic is like Paolo and Franz are going to do what Paolo and Franz are going to do. You add in a Desmond Bane, you bring back a Jalen Suggs, and suddenly that ball is rolling a little faster downhill for you. And hopefully it ends the other big number for the Magic where they haven't been outside the bottom 10 in offensive rating since 2012.
It is one of the most interesting teams to watch, especially in the Eastern Conference. Big changes. They're pushing chips in. They're making the moves. And Phil, you're going to cover it all for us over on Locked On Magic. Thanks again for these insights, these remarkable stats that you're bringing forward for us as well. And this team is going to be intriguing. Thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely, Josh. Always a pleasure to be on.
And that is the Orlando Magic. Again, Jalen Suggs is going to be good. Just throw out everything that you saw last season. I don't know that there'll be a bigger usage drop of any player in the NBA from what Suggs did, and I love him. But expect it. Expect it to drop. Guys, you know what to do. I would like your subscriptions. We are always in search of the elusive 100K sub mark on YouTube. We might get there, probably not. About 15,000, 16,000 to go. Hopefully. And then we only get there with you. Only you can prevent me not getting 100,000 subs. Guys, we're done here. Maybe Raptors tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.